Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM, AM 630. WMAL.
7:07 on the Morning Majority. Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, Sherry Jacobus in for Mary Catherine Ham, who's taking a few more days off. And we want to talk to our guest on the line right now. He's a congressman from the great state of Texas, the Republic of Texas. He serves the 1st Congressional District there. Louie Gohmert is on the line. Congressman, thanks for joining us here on the Morning Majority.
Well, sure, Brian. Great to be with you.
And you serve on the Judiciary Committee, so I want to get right to the topic that most interests me right now, and I think it's one of the big, burbling stories out there. A lot still to know about this, and that's the Fast and Furious investigation.
Oh, I thought I was going to talk about corn.
Well, corn porn? Is that what you want to talk about? Okay.
Corn sex? Yeah.
Okay, no, we're not going to do that.
Oh, okay.
Fast and Furious. Last Friday, the Justice Department dumped some 1,400 documents at 5 o'clock, which is always a sign to reporters that there must be some good stuff in there they didn't want us to look at. And one of the things that they did was they actually withdrew earlier representations that had been made to Congress about the Fast and Furious program, in which they said, we were tracking these things and we were doing everything we could. They withdrew that information. What is the latest on this story, and what is the next shoe to drop in your mind?
Well, we do have the Attorney General coming before Judiciary for oversight on Thursday, but there should have already been a lot of people losing their jobs. This is insane to have had a United States agent, a law enforcement agent, lose his life. No telling how many more have or will. Many in Mexico have, as a result of decisions made by and through our Justice Department. He's in charge. He either knew about some of this stuff, and as we all know, you've seen it over and over, Brian. You guys have covered so much news. The cover-up is what usually gets people.
Right, absolutely.
Got Nixon, and then you find out these guys actually falsified representations to Congress to cover up what was really going on. This Attorney General, you should have known by his history. A guy that was complicit in the Mark Rich pardon, defending terrorists. Then he comes in as Attorney General. He refuses to accept the judgment against the new Black Panthers that were clearly violating their civil rights of voters, refuses to prosecute funders of terrorism, refuses to enforce the law like DOMA, refuses to defend the border, helps drug dealers while going after our own law enforcement, goes after our own intelligence officers, files suit against Arizona over a law he said he didn't even read. So it's not surprising this kind of thing would happen.
Right.
And I could overlook the fact that he's really not that bright. It certainly appears he's not very bright on much of the law, but well, you're
going to get a crack at Eric Holder on Thursday, right?
And I have before, and in fact, in one prior hearing, and this is why I say I was shocked he was not smarter about the law. We got into the business of waterboarding and whether it was torture, and he kept trying to explain, well, the reason it's not torture when our own people do it of our own trainees is the intent. And he got boxed into a corner, and he didn't even understand the reason that you can't even claim it's even consider it being torture of our own people is implied consent, express consent, they consent to the training they're going. He had no clue, and I went, wow, this guy's not as smart as I thought. He kept trying to talk about intent. Mm-hmm. But we can overlook that maybe he didn't get a very good legal training, but when it comes to honesty and justice, which is the name, as you know, of his department, there is no excuse for covering up. Either he's complicit or he's incompetent, and he should have gone. Let me remind you that under the Bush administration, when there was a report that the national security letters under the Patriot Act had been violated, and Gonzalez did not admit before the Senate that there had been violations, even though he had a report 3 days before on his desk. He wasn't there much longer. That was the end of his being Attorney General.
All right. Yesterday,
he needs to go.
Congressman, yesterday on this same time, Joe DeGenevieve, our legal expert, former U.S. prosecutor, was on, and he said it seemed to him that a lot of the problems in Fast and Furious stem from the attorney's office in Arizona, in Phoenix, and the U.S. Attorney Dennis Burke, who he thinks is the bad apple and was giving bad information to the Justice Department and maybe ultimately Eric Holder. I'm wondering if you've seen any evidence of that, and is it possible that the real problem in all this comes out of the DA's office in Phoenix?
Well, there is evidence that Mr. Burke was complicit, and of course that he has resigned. But there's no way that this could have been the work of one person. There's no way. You can't have this thousands of guns being sold through a program like this without more than one person being complicit in it, and certainly the U.S. Attorney was not part of the original decision to do this. And the buck stops with the head of the department. Actually, it goes up to the president, but he pulled a Bill Clinton. I didn't know anything about all this stuff. But that's the president. We'll worry about that later. But we've got to figure out how many other people were involved, because this was not just the work of one U.S. attorney.
Congressman, with regard to this massive document dump on Friday, and I've worked on the Hill, I've been a committee staffer, and I know how irritating it must be to have this just dumped on everybody, and they have to comb through it. Now we've got Holder coming up to the Hill to face the music a little bit on Thursday. Has there been any attempt by the Obama administration, by Holder's people at Justice, to work with committee staff and members of Congress prior to Holder coming up to pour through these documents and find the really important things? Or have they just sort of left you all to your own devices, dump the documents, have no contact until he shows up? Because they clearly did that in an effort to sort of obfuscate, cover stuff up, sweep it under the rug and not help out the committee staff. Have they been working with you at all in between?
No, their whole history is one of obfuscating, if that's how you say it. But,
Thank you.
No, but that's been their history ever since he's been in office. They postpone, they cover up, and so you guys have been on the Hill in a prior life before I was a judge. I was involved in massive litigation, and when you see a document dump like this, you know there's something there, and the problem for the Attorney General is some of us will take that document dump and go through it and find the smoking guns. So it's obvious what they were doing, but this has just been their pattern.
All right.
If this were just the first time, but this has gone on and on about so many things. Basically, they did a cover-up on the business with the voter intimidation in the Black Panther Party. They were not forthcoming.
Well, I know you're going to have
one who ended up leaving the office, and Christians ended up disclosing a lot of information, and we saw just how bad this Justice Department is. Well,
you're going to have a very interesting hearing on Thursday, and we'll all be watching very closely, because I think this is a story that there are a lot of shoes left to drop in. Thank you, Congressman, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Always good.